Hey folks, welcome to Soaring Prophets. I'm Patrick, as always, and my co-host James with me tonight, and we've got a fantastic guest for you. First of all, we're super excited to be kind of partnered with this organization with Sabrina Runbeck and Healthcare Amplified, and it's a really unique opportunity. For myself, I've had sick family members. I had owned a business in the medical care space for a number of years. And what Healthcare Amplified is doing is really a unique space. And they're really focused on creating an opportunity for dialogue, communication, and changing the conversation in regards to how we're implementing education and innovation in the healthcare space. So Sabrina, first of all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you. We kind of focus our overarching goals of unveiling the stories of champions. And with what you folks are doing with Healthcare Amplified, the Healthcare Amplified Summit that's coming up here at the end of January, it's a pleasure to have you. So first of all, thank you. And my first question, Sabrina, you jumped into this. You're tackling these big, lofty medical goals. Like, this isn't like, we're going to invent a new sub sandwich. These are like tackling the things that really make the difference in people's lives. Why? How did you decide to do this? What is it that you folks are doing with? And Sabrina, how did you get involved, and why are you the right person for making these huge changes in our medical community?
Thank you so much, guys, for having me here. Definitely, it's a pleasure. And thanks, everyone, to stay tuned and watch us, because we know you can be spending your time doing anything and you choose us. So we appreciate you for being here. Now, in this era of a lot of misconception, misinformation, we get drowned by noises. Instead of how do we empower our voice to tell our truths and then share the best resources to get people from A to Z much faster, instead of crawling like a snail, going to step by step. And how do we find the right resources nowadays? It's much easier. It's through our podcast, through radio, through TV. And those are all owned, just like YouTube, independent. And those of us who has stepped beyond just clinical medicine have decided that for us to advocate for ourselves, for us to advocate for our patient, for us to advocate for the changes that we can make tomorrow, for what we can deliver in the healthcare system, it starts with just simply making statements that truly you believe in. And that is through podcasting, YouTubing, and all the amazing media space that we have bring together. So I was someone who has been in the healthcare space for over a decade, starting in the public health realm, and I really love working with patients. So went into PA school and been practicing cardiac surgery for the past 9 years. And through my especially early journey, I was in these big name, large hospital where things can just happen fast. But that also means I was on call almost every day. I was working 80 hours per week, running these larger programs, and where we had heart surgery, lung surgery, vascular transplant, the whole 9 yards. People were flying international to us. So of course, the sense of responsibility, you're like, yes, right? We're doing something amazing. But on the flip side, all of us have that burned out, where you don't even believe you can burn out, to a point that you really hit the wall. And I hit that wall. And to the point where I was telling my manager the next day, I can't make it to work because I'm having a fever. I can't even get out of bed. The response from the other side was, Sabrina, you didn't thought to tell us sooner? Now, I understand from an admin perspective, now that has transitioned, and being in a business owner perspective, it's always, well, I'm sympathetic for you, but what are we going to do for the work that you are left behind? Now I'm in the position to say, actually, that's why you set up contingency. You have backups, right? And when we are not seeing ourselves and valuing ourselves and feeling discouraged, is that we don't care that we have to work hard. We don't care about all the hard effort, the time we put in. What do we mind is that we are not being appreciative, and we're not seeing the progression of what we're truly creating is actually happening.
Right.
So I pivot, going into public speaking, started with hospital-wise continuing education conferences, hosting and speaking, going to local, national events. And eventually, of course, what we want is have a platform of our own. So launched my podcast about 3.5 years ago, turned that into a TV show about a year ago, and really realized media is a great way to control the dialogue and encouraging other people who are on the path of leveraging media as a platform to really niche down to the specific community that you want to build, who has a similar passion, similar interests, and similar drive to actually create something together. And now, like big TV and radio, sometimes it's harder to find what are these audiences. And when you have a show that becomes the audio in someone else's pocket, and when you continuously support that special community, that's the power that you're delivering, even though you might not see it day to day.
Well, so you've answered all our questions. It was great to see you, folks. Have a great day. Talk to you. No, Sabrina, obviously you're talking from a place of experience. And one of the biggest issues, as a healthcare consumer, one of the biggest issues that we have is not understanding or the clear and concise communications with our professionals, right? There's this higher level thinking, the doctor knows best. I don't know if I can, ask questions per se. There is such a knowledge gap between practitioner and end user. And what it seems like you folks are doing is that you're taking the knowledge of that high level individual that is this professional in this obtuse space for so many of the population. And you're allowing those people to work in their core competency, but then allowing it to be disseminated to the masses on a different way. And when you do that, you're allowing a dialogue. You're allowing a communication that otherwise is not there. And like I said, when you are explaining what it is you do, you hit it so you can tell you're passionate about it. And when someone's passionate about what they do, it's amazing how you get it. And you're saying you're preaching to the converted. We look at what you're doing, and it's the reason why we did Soaring Prophets and the reason why we do this, because our opportunity to reach an audience, have some fun, but also inform people. And I do that with my financial fitness piece. James talks a lot about mental health and some of the issues that what it is of getting old, right, James? Isn't that your
mostly it's getting old and what I need to do for the next steps of geriatric life.
That's it.
Yeah. No,
but Sabrina, you've now created events, you've created TV shows, you've created this podcast environment. Why are you executing in that direction? Because it seems like you're kind of at this cutting edge, the forefront of this communications network that is otherwise kind of unattainable to most of the public.
Right. Most people will think about communication. I gotta be pitched in news and TV shows. Now, I pitch myself. I learned how to pitch. Guess what? Within 3 months, I was dedicated. I was going, and then I got myself on like 8, 9 different segments right away. Now that takes time and effort, and also TV segments needed to be relevant to the current event.
Absolutely.
And holidays and all the jazz. Yep. And that's how I was able to get placed. However, podcasting and YouTube channels and these type of shows, they're evergreen contents. And as long as you can be very specific on how you're able to uniquely solve a problem toward that specific audience, then you are serving the show hosts and producers and serving the audience at large. And ACAS came out with a study that showed, due to the chaotic, untrustworthy of what the public has been showing us, now podcast has been shown as the #1 trusted platform, and second is YouTube.
We got them. I knew we'd fool them. We got them. Yeah.
And even though podcasts still have smaller number of shows as compared to YouTube, which is really a big search engine, that the average listener, more than 66%, have higher education and in a household income that's six-figure. So we also know that's a better educated population that we help to tone in. And so we are modifying on, we can have the leverage of what we wanted to share, both from a clinician perspective of educating, entertaining, right? If you think about Dr. Z, like they're singing, they're making fun of medical problems. And then there are other physicians that will have film of like popping a cyst, even though it's gross looking, but people kind of want to watch it, right? And then you have the other side, the patient and the caregiver side, sharing their own true story on how they are surviving this chaos. And even just from a medical practitioner side, I can look at the bills like, why did they charge me like that? Right? I know exactly what they did for me. What are those things happening? Right? So even from someone who has the medical knowledge, doesn't mean we actually have the billing and rev cycle knowledge to actually help and protect us. So all of us needed to help each other out to say, what are we doing? What are the information that we're sharing? How can we help other shows, other message to spread? Because on average, people who listen to podcasts actually listen to 3-4 other shows. So it's actually, we're not competing anybody. We can actually help each other. That's why we do podcast swaps. That's why people do bonus episodes to feature other people's shows, right? So there's a lot more way to grow this community in a supportive, collaborative way, not just a platform of a course that you just film a bunch of stuff and then hopefully someone buys it, purchases it, or give it away for free. There's a lot more interactive way to expand our messages.
Well, I think that's amazing. You brought up a bunch of amazing points. The first is that podcasters tend to be the most sharing, giving people. Like we have other podcasters on because we want to shine their light. Like it's not about us getting more people. It's about we want to unveil the stories of champions, much like yourself. And the other thing that you brought up that I thought was interesting that I've talked to my personal doctor about just to see how he feels about it is that we all have sort of become unprofessional Google doctors. And so here we are. We're diagnosing ourselves. We're trying to digest all this kind of different information through podcasts, through YouTube, through TikTok now is diagnosing people. What is your advice? Like, so obviously Healthcare Amplified. If we go to Healthcare Amplified, you put that stamp of approval on everyone there who's talking so that we know those are experts in their field. They're the thought leaders. But how do we decode in podcast world who we should listen to? Like recently, I've been doing a study on ADHD, and there are so many variant ideas on it. How do you know which direction to go, who to trust, what to do? And what you're doing kind of does that in a unique way because you're putting a stamp of approval on certain podcasters and not on others, but the ones that aren't there, they're not getting that stamp. So how do you recommend someone who is like interested and wants to be informed, but also doesn't want to be misinformed? How do we mitigate that?
Yeah, I think that if we can solve that problem, I think all major network will thank us, right? Wanted to pay us. So it's definitely one of the biggest.
She's political. I like that. I like
know,
Sabrina. She's
right?
good. That was a good answer.
Well, the only thing is, any validation entity can only do so much, and I think we wanted to trust people based out of their nature of goodness. So if you're sending information out, no matter who you are, people can tell if it's authentic or not. However, the validity of the information is a challenge on how do we decide is that truthful or not. Right. And then I always believe that no matter what, everyone is correct 1% at least. Right. And therefore, you can't flat out reject any thoughts and you can't directly go into that is the perfect and everything that nothing else can compete. So when we're listening to information, I always come in with a grain of salt to say everything is possible, but what have we learned that's actually repeatable,
Right.
that has been measured, that has been tested? And if it's not being done scientifically, it's a hypothesis, okay, that still can be a valid thought. But what can we make sense of it? And just like if we're talking about vaccines, if talking about anything that's new coming out, then there's going to be a degree of fear on what is truthful about the effectiveness of anything, right?
Well, it sounds like, Sabrina, as well, with what you folks are doing with the continuing education aspect, is that you guys are positioning yourself to be able to bring professionals into the space, work with them. Because, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but healthcare professionals are requiring continuing education hours every year, correct?
Correct.
Right. So you folks are how are you implementing that? And what does that look like? Because this seems like an incredibly unique and viable option for somebody all over the world to work with you folks under your continuing education plan, but also being able to work within their practice, create some of that notoriety, work around thought leadership, and develop a brand while continuing their education and their credentials. This seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, that's such a great point. It's that when we create information, now it doesn't really matter which category. You are correct. We can be talking about business growth as well as mental health, as well as patient advocacy or political changes. Now, our continuing education is not by attendance. Just because you went to our conference, it doesn't automatically give you the credit. You have
But
to
go to the
actually
conference.
But go to the conference.
go to the conference. Exactly. Because we wanted to see you. We
That's it.
understand there's a difference between just listening in the background. Nowadays, everyone turn on the audio live event and they walk away and then come back and they're half listening, half absorbing whatever is communicated. But when we're in the conference, I always say there's a 4 distinct factor on how do you break through the walls of these hypothetical gatekeeper that you're constantly hitting and not getting to the decision maker, right? So no matter what are we creating, whether you have an innovation, you're having a service, you have a device, you have a product, it's not that people don't see the value. It's perhaps you're not communicating in the right way with the right decision maker to actually help you.
100%. And I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second, because my experience in the healthcare field, that is a 10 out of 10 problem, right? Very brief story. My father just passed away from stage 4 cancer here a year and a half ago. And we would sit in these medical appointments and they would talk at us.
Yeah.
And I missed that day at med school, self-admitted. 1 or 2 maybe tops that I missed, but you're being talked at a level that unless that individual really can get down to the emotional maturity and the understanding of that patient, it's not there. And I know for my father at that time, with being told, sir, you're going to die, you turn off. And there's so much to that. And it sounds like with what you folks are doing is that it's like, okay, there's a way to do the medical practicing. There's a way to create a brand around awareness and efficacy, but there's also a way to create a personal brand and to be able to spread that message, that information, that dialogue. And I think I think you folks are hitting on all cylinders in what you folks are doing. And that's, I kind of hinted in a joking way there in regards to attend for January, the Amplified Healthcare Amplified Summit. But James and I, we're going to be flying down. We're going to visit you folks in Orlando from January 24th to 28th. If you click that little link on the bottom, if you are a healthcare practitioner, if you are someone that's interested in this, you can click the link, you can get involved with these people. But you see what Sabrina's doing. You see what Healthcare Amplified is putting out there. And again, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think that is such a key competence for what you folks are doing. And I really want to echo that, because I really do think that there is such a disconnect in the medical community around getting to that efficacy and speaking for your patients and informing them at that level. And it sounds like you guys are doing it in such a unique way.
I think what you're saying is like so important. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you because quite often when I talk to, like, I am very fortunate. The doctor I have slows it down, really explains it in language I understand. But I've had doctors that the one doctor, I'm not going to say, talked into his dictaphone, and I didn't understand a word he was saying. And then at the end, he got up and left the room, and the nurse came in and said, "Okay, you're all done." And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. What do you mean? So there's all different levels of doctors, but what you guys are doing is you're bringing people to the table that can speak in a language that we will understand about topics that are complicated and difficult and hard. And I think it's amazing what you're doing. Like, your podcast alone does that, but the fact that we can actually follow along in these very complicated ideas and the very complicated surgeries, etc., whatever you're doing, I think that is huge. So that when we're faced with, say, a cancer, or we're faced with a heart surgery, we can look to your stuff and we can watch it and go, okay, that's what my doctor's talking about. And I think that is the most beautiful part of it. Maybe you could talk about some of the people that will be talking at Healthcare Amplified, which I believe is on the 24th, right, of January?
25th, the Thursday.
25th, sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
and we have such amazing list of speakers coming up, and I just feel so fortunate that people are saying yes to us and just being there with us. So we have one of our guests is actually Mrs. USA from who is a cancer survivor, and
Wow.
she had
Wow.
bilateral mastectomy. She started a blog called Blonde Bombshell as her husband just kind of called her that as a kind of funny name. And she really took that off and sharing her experience of going through cancer and still having kids and how does that all manifest into her life. And she actually works for a patient advocacy and senior care community, and she does specifically advocate for hospice care. So it's amazing to have Christy with us. And then we have Todd from Pharmacy Podcast Network. They are one of the largest community of all pharmacists. And so we're so fortunate for him to talk to us about building community while leveraging podcasts, just like what we're doing, except they're focusing just on pharmacy. Well, we wanted to bring all the healthcare entities together from the patient side and the clinician side and the pharma and the tech side. And we also have people as Elsie. She has been advocate for leukemia for her campaigns. And then there's so many other people that will be talking about how do you build a brand, be a thought leader in person and online, and how do you leveraging different tools, especially media, to grow your business, and what are the ways that you can truly monetize your shows, so you're not just giving away all these amazing things and devoting your sweat, right? Educating, but how do you validate? How do you value your own time and effort for putting these shows? And we're also going to talk about legal topics, because we should protect our intellectual properties, copywriting our content, and podcasting. If you think about trademarks and building even a company behind it, where you're embedding your podcast as a method of your company, all different ways to make sure you're protected of that entity. And as well as how do you truly be a brand, right? Leveraging podcasting, and how do you really maximize the platform you have for content creation? And it's just so amazing to have all these people. We have 3 VIP sessions and then 6 amazing panel sessions with 3 speakers each. And it's just something that we wanted to be very interactive and having fun things end of the day with cocktail events. So we wanted to meet you guys. We wanted to really share the story of why you guys are loving podcasting, YouTubing, and leveraging media. Why do you like to speak? or all you do is love to moderate, right? What have you been doing to build your community, and how we can support you to help leverage all our resources and elevate together?
I think it's amazing. Like, I really do. What you folks are doing is brilliant. I'm super excited to be a part of it. And I know James and I, we're likely going to be the only people in the pool, because we're coming from Canada. You guys down there, you'll be thinking it's freezing in jackets and coats, and we'll be sitting there with the shirts off by the pool, because
I'll be lying in the
4
sun.
inches of snow out here today. So who knows what could happen, right? But
I'm not gonna lie,
hot
tub.
There you go, the hot tub. Exactly. Yeah, a little fun.
Yeah, right in the hot tub. Yeah.
So with what you were saying there, one of the things that I have found again, with doing the financial aspect with financial fitness with Patrick, and even with Soaring Prophets, is that when we bring on these higher level thinkers, right, the thought leaders in their space, and we really showcase them, one of the things that's tricky is that it's really tricky and difficult to be a thought leader. It's really tricky to be a great interview. And it's really tricky to demonetize your time for the short period of time that it takes to build the brand to where you can monetize your experience.
Absolutely.
Now, in your experience with Healthcare Amplified, when you're going to physicians, when you're going to specialists, when you're going to these organizations, and when you said, a pharmacist podcast, nothing says sexy more than pharmacist podcast, right? So how do you take somebody that's a multiple 6-figure earner, 7-figure, earner, and put them in front of a microphone where they are going to sit down for maybe 3-4 hours putting a podcast together, where there is no instant gratification, where there is no instant return on that investment, and say to them, work with me, let us build something, we can build something and develop something fantastic. Maybe you can explain a little bit about how you sell that to somebody that is those high level, high income earners, but they work on their time in so many things, because they're not necessarily business people. They're fantastic pharmacists, they're fantastic doctors, but so often than not, they don't understand how a branding works, or they don't understand the business side or the growth, the exponential side of this. How do you get them to sit down, hunker down in front of a microphone and the digital technology that we're so lucky to have, to be able to put that time and effort into creating what you folks are doing?
Yeah, what amazing question. Because if you think about it, there's two parts. There's the part of the people who has own businesses and believe, hey, there's something I'm doing is no longer working.
Right.
What else can I do to create the right visibilities toward the right circle of people, right? So I'm all about, how do you convert today's contact into tomorrow's clients?
Right.
Now, media in itself is a long-term process. It doesn't convert like that. And it's just the same thing as when people posting all day long in social media and there's nothing happening.
Absolutely.
It's because if you're just blasting things out without intention, without strategy, then you're doing a lot of work. And then we have to talk about, is that quality work? Is your writing connecting with other people? And or you just throwing spaghetti at a wall and see whatever thing sticks, right? Then that doesn't work. So I have this conversation with my team all the time. So for my business, there's two sides. One, through Healthcare Amplify, we always wanted to have a branding assessment. Pretty much just mean, let's start from top down, right? Let's not bottom up, not to say, what should I do every day so I can make something happen, right? Well, we'll get to that. But if we're so stuck on creating all the videos, it's just busy work. So we have to go from top down. It's, what does this show can actually do for you? What is this end goal, right? If it's the end goal is be able to say you have a leverage on community, you are pushing a policy change for some time, even for physician. One of the things we always fight is for our licensing, how much we can do in certain way, right? Sure. And then we go into the community to do it. So if I have a petition, I have a whole audience, that subscribers, then I can ask them to say, hey, go to this website and vote for me, right? Support this mission. Yep. And versus people who are business owner, we can say, all right, are you leveraging it as a way to attract your clients to convert them into warming them up, because we know there are at least 7 to 8 checkpoints of familiarity before people take action.
Right.
So if that's the purpose, then we can just record, right? One of the strategies is like, okay, if that's the end goal, what's the next step right before it, right? And then once we establish a final success factor and then a measurable KPI, then we can say, all right, then the method could be, because your people, one of the show hosts told me they're connecting with all senior care. And seniors actually love to listen to audios, and therefore podcasting has been great for them to find resources. So that's why they launch a podcast. And what they do is they'll film for 2 to 4 hours. And then that entire interview with multiple people get dissected into different segments, into different social media, blogs, newsletter, right? We can really concentrate a subset of time and repurposing in multiple ways that people actually absorb content and have a strategy on, okay, if we're going to do blog, right? Are they SEO optimized? Are the titles, the content actually fit, right? And we don't just all of a sudden pick a random topic and go for it. You need to do researches. You needed to know exactly what the buying behavior, the thought process, the struggles of those clientele specifically that you want to connect with, and then figure out what topics they like to with all these tools, AI system that can help you to find them. And then you do the filming. And then after the filming, we dissect out all these pieces. So what they are involved with are simply just get the topic and let's film it. Let's talk about it. And then everything else are based on what the final strategy and the team will build this out for them. So not thinking so much on, oh my God, it's such a heavy load of work. But if you have a high level strategy and a specific workflow to create efficiency, then when you hire that production company and marketing team to make sure they're not just purely publishing, they're actually helping you with all the checkpoints and engagements, then you have no need to do anything else but continue to show up as a thought leader on the topics people are researching the most.
Yeah, that is so true. Like people watch podcasts all the time and they only see that 15 minutes, that 20 minutes, that hour or whatever. They don't know the amount of work that goes into it. The beginning, you're absolutely right. You have to sit down and go, okay, who am I talking to? Because it's not like TV. You are trying to specifically call someone towards you, a group of people. It could be an age, it could be their sex, it could be the people who have cancer. It really depends, and you want to shape your show around that. Even like what's in the background, you kind of want to have the right colors, and you want to have the right clothing, and you want to you don't want to come off you don't want to be wearing a suit and then talking about baseball, right? You want to have all of that connected, and it really is something that you have to think about to put together. So when we go to Healthcare Amplified, which we are, and people are discussing this stuff and they're going to be talking about it, what kind of things are they going to be expressing to us? Like, are they going to be specifically talking about how they break down their podcast? Are they going to be talking about the stories behind it? Will they be telling us about how, like you were a very great surgeon. You were like probably one of the top at your field. And then you had that moment where you're like, I'm not doing the right thing. I know for sure I'm not doing the right thing. I've had it. A lot of the people that we unveil here, a lot of the stories of the champions that we talk about, they very much have that moment. They are very successful in what they're doing. And it's not that they're not successful. It's that they know they're not doing what they should be doing because they have that moment where their body even attacks them. They're tired, they're feverish, they get sick. Mentally, they may break down. What will they be? Will they be telling us those stories as well? What can we look forward to when they scan that code at the top right and buy a ticket to come see us?
Yeah, I think one of the point you said was the alignment in purposefulness. And one of the things we also believe in is that all of us as a collective entity have the similar drive, and that's who we attract to the event. One of the study, actually, my partner told me is that in the US, only about 25% of the population understand that they have a purpose. Of those, only 1% know their highest purpose. Despite of us having these high functioning careers, jobs, and titles behind our names, it doesn't truly mean we're on the right path for our highest purpose.
Yes.
And that's when you start seeing people have morphing and changing and unable to adapt and don't know what they're doing. And when they find a purpose, then they start realigning into what could be. But when they play into their highest purpose, then they can block out all the supposedly good advices that are not truly great advices for them.
Yes.
So when we are in this community of Healthcare Amplify, we're sharing the best practices based on these themes of topics that we mentioned earlier. And also, while you're engaging with these speakers and with attendees, the recommendation we always love to give to people is 60-second connection pitch.
Love it.
And how does that work? So I run think tank events all the time, and we always have everyone spotlighted in the middle. And the format that I recommend people to use to best come across as a giver and the clear expectation of who you are is the first 40 seconds, I do want to hear your side, right? Almost like bring us into who you are in that story, the mission, the who do you want to support and what that result looks like, right? The typical things that we really care about who you are.
Right.
Then you wanted to ask people for one specific thing that they can support you on. The problem with a lot of people going to conferences and not get much out of it is they get super excited and collect all the business cards, but no one actually know, what do you need from me? How
Yes.
can I support you? We love to support each other, but if you don't have that one clear ask, if you ask too many things, people will forget. If you don't ask at all, people don't know how to help you. So make your one clear ask. Right after that, so you don't see as a taker, but a win-win mutual giver, you want to share how do you also support them. And something that I did in the last year's PodFest, I pretty much had people curbside me to say, Sabrina, I'm doing all this. Can you just help me fix my elevator pitch? And I just like regroup that. Because if you think about it, when you come back to say, hey, this is what my one asks, and for me to support you, I can, yada, yada. So for Healthcare Amplify, I can say something like, my passion is really become the catalyst for healthcare technology business to make sure that they can become the future, revolutionize how we deliver care. And we wanted to make sure these gifted founders and solutions are making to the market instead of getting drowned by the competitors. And my specific ask is, I have a podcast show. I love to get to know founders and interview them. So please introduce them to me.
Yeah.
And my give is that we actually have a whole community of Healthcare Amplify. We love to add our speakers and show hosts on our directory, our hub, where we meet regularly on a monthly basis, and we weekly spotlight each other to help people to shine and grow together. So if you like to be added to a directory, let me know. I'll share that link with you. Something can be that simple and give people a perspective of your passion, what you're doing, and what you need from them, and then also how you give back.
Yeah. Well, Sabrina, again, brilliant in what you're putting out there. The advice that you just garnered there in regards to, instead of walking out with a briefcase full of, business cards that you never follow up on, there's never any action taken. You had maybe an extra scotch that evening at the party, but you don't really know what else you achieved. In 10 seconds of explaining that, you nailed exactly a quid pro quo of how a relationship can work, and you can build a business out of exactly what you're doing. We're getting about that time. I want to start wrapping it up. But first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Folks, check out this Healthcare Amplified. Everyone is going to come in at some point in their life or their family's life into a healthcare scenario, right? You're going to deal with professionals. I really do feel like there's an opportunity for literally everyone to get involved with the Healthcare Amplified Symposium that we're going to be putting on. And this is, again, like I said earlier, this is going to be Orlando, Florida, January 24th and 28th. You're going to see us all by the pool. James and I topless at the pool. Like, why would you not be there? It's going to be wild. And Sabrina's in the hot tub. So I'm just saying it's going to be a wild time. But
until you see two Canadians pasty white beside a pool in Florida, you haven't lived. Really.
Well, with Mickey ears, it'll be good. I swear it'll be fantastic. But we're at the Wyndham International Hotel in Orlando for the 24th to 28th. The link down below, the QR code above me. I'm reversed, so I never know which way to put my hands when I do that sort of thing. But there's no one that this sort of thing can't help. Whether you're looking to get into this space, whether you're a podcaster and you're looking to continue and help individuals in the medical space, there is a massive learning curve when it comes to transitioning from the massively educational focused driven medical space into that public speaking space and podcasting. All the things that are around us here. James doing the production here, he can tell you there's a massive learning curve. So unless you're going to go out of your pocket big up front, there's massive education that needs to come in here. And it sounds like Sabrina's taking the time, building that community, and is working to really fortify these professionals as thought leaders in their space. So Sabrina, I want to thank you. When we wrap these up, we always we ask our guest at the very end to leave kind of on a word of wisdom. I don't think you'll let us down. That's our kind of gotcha question at the end of these. But from me, folks, I want to thank you. Get in touch. Check out the link below. And as always, for me, let's make some money together, guys. James.
Yeah, Pat, you're absolutely right. There's a lot to go into when you're developing a podcast. You can have the greatest voice, you can have the greatest statement in the world, but the technology it takes to put together, to run it, there are so many learning curves because there's just not one program you use several programs. If you get into the podcast field where you're just using your audio, it's even more labor intensive. Believe it or not, it is. And these great programs like Healthcare Amplified and the Podfest itself, which is going on at the same time, are those places that you can go to. And not only will you be able to join in and meet other podcasters and maybe share content and say, hey, why don't you come on my show? I'll come on your show. But you can also like save yourself some time. I talk about mentorship all the time. You want your goals, find a mentor who's doing it well. If you want to learn to run, find a mentor who learns to run. If you want to lose weight, find a mentor who has already lost weight. That is how you do it. Come to Podcast Amplified. Check us out. Meet us in person. Tell us that you watched the show. I would love that. I would be overjoyed. You know what? You come, tell me poolside, pasty white, that you watched my show, and I will do an interview with you right by the pool because I love that. I want to meet the people who are listening and want to hear us unveil these stories of champions. Speaking of champions, Sabrina, already a beautiful surgeon. She, instead of just breaking down and allowing herself to be broken and stop, which a lot of people do, she overcame it and she found a new niche where she can still do that higher level helping of other people. And I think that's beautiful. And like I say all the time, here we are unveiling the stories of a champion. Sabrina, you're a champion. I'm so happy that you came to join us. I'm happy that we're going to come down there and meet you in person and do some interviews. I can't wait to sit poolside. Profiteers out there, we love you all. Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. Sabrina, take us out.
Awesome. And you guys are being amazing. And I can't wait for the amount of people that we gather together. All right. So last word of wisdom.
No pressure.
No pressure. All right. I always ask this question actually at the end of our show at Healthcare Amplify, what does amplify means to you? I think all of us have that inner self and drive to have a spark that we wanted to be coming out. And that's why we say, how do you leverage your voice to amplify that idea and mission? And when you truly believe in yourself, when you tap into your highest purpose and you're aligned in how you wanted to influence authentically, then you can bring on the right people with the right resources and put them in the right seat. That's how we can scale and grow very quickly without the typical years, months to see anything from happening. Yeah. It's all about how you build a collective group of geniuses, and without thinking you have to be the only one being there, because there are so many people that want us to support you because you simply being you.
I love that. What a great way to end.